Well, good morning, Kuching, Sarawak. How is everybody this morning? It's so great to be here. Now, most people here know me as an animal lover. I've been 10 years with the Sarawak Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or SSPCA. And of course, I'm also a nature lover. I like to think I have a deep connection with the environment around us. You know, I sit at the traffic lights and I look at the trees swaying in the wind, and I think that their leaves are waving to me, and I smile. Now, how many of you here speak to your plants? Could be the little plant on your tabletop or plants that you have in your garden. How many of you here speak to vegetables in the supermarket? Crazy? Yeah. I got caught one day speaking to the vegetables in the supermarket. I usually talk to myself, you know, that inner monologue, but I guess this day I must have been vocalizing out. And a friend came up to me and he says, "Hey, Donna, how are you doing?" Talking to the vegetables? And I said, "Oh my God, was I talking out loud?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "You know, I had a friend come up to me and he said to me, ลูกว่าอะโมจาโบกับชายกงวะ." Translated from Hokkien, that means, look at that woman over there talking to the vegetables. But I have discovered over the last few years that what I say actually has an effect on the trees in my garden as well. We were building an extension for my children in another piece of land next door. And then as we were plotting the buildings with the architect, we came upon this tree, and the architect said, "We will save this tree." He said, "We will build around it." And I said, "Yeah, that's great. But you know, this tree," I said, "the fruit, the avocado, the flesh is kind of watery and tasteless. Yeah, not many people like it." So 3 days later, I was walking past the tree, and I noticed that the leaves started to dry up. So I thought, oh, not looking very good, but I didn't say anything. 2 days later, I walked past it again. All the leaves had dropped. All the fruit had fallen to the ground to rot. And my landscape guy came over, and he just shook his head. My tree had died. My words had killed it. Coincidence? We have a durian tree at home. It's a wild durian. And it has the most beautiful flowers every season. It comes up with the buds and the pink flowers. Everybody knows I love pink. Great in abundance. But no fruit. Last year we had one durian. So this year I thought I would check my connection with the flora again. Let me test it. So I went under the tree and I spoke to it and I said, "Durian tree, I love your flowers. So beautiful, so pink. But this year I want to see some fruit. I even moved my kalulut bees to be right next to you. So this year, show me." And this year, not all the flowers dropped off. Some of them stayed on and grew to be little baby durians. And I was so happy. And I would walk onto my balcony, I'd draw the curtains, open the balcony doors, and I could hear my son Nigel in the back going, "Yeah, crazy durian woman, gonna go talk to her tree again." And I would tell it how happy I was and how beautiful the babies were and how well they were doing. And so this year, we managed to harvest not 10, not 20, but 50 durians. We got 50 durians this year. And the ones that we left on the trees were the ones that we decided to leave for the squirrels and the birds. Now, in my experience with SSPCA, and I'm sure a lot of you have had the same kind of experience I've had, with the trees. You feel that connection. And so likewise with the animals. But in my work, I'm always asked, why animals? Why animals when there are so many human beings that need help? And I do a lot of work with other NGOs, such as through the Thalassemia Society, also through our Trefoil Guild Girl Guides. And I've even shaved my head to raise funds for children with cancer. Just yesterday, I was singing for the Diabetes Association. So my answer to that question, why animals, is this. We are all God's creatures. We are all part of one universe. We are all part of life. Now, I've always been attuned to the plight of animals. From a very young age, I remember walking to school, walking to our primary school, and as I walked through the gates, I could hear the sound, the plaintive cry of what must have been a very young kitten. So I searched and I searched, but I couldn't find it. And then the school bell rang, so I had to run up to class. At the end of the school day, walking back to the gate, I listened again, and I could hear it a little further away, but it sounded more desperate. So I needed to follow that sound. And it took me to the shop lots, which were right next to our school. And on the corner, there's an old tailor. And so I walked in and I asked her, have you seen or heard a kitten? And they all shook their heads, because they couldn't hear anything above the whir of the sewing machines. So I asked for permission to go in and look around, and she said, okay. She had piles of fabrics and dresses all over the place, and as I walked around, I just felt that the sound seemed to come from the entrance. So I walked to the entrance and I listened. And then it seemed to come from above me. So I looked up, and there I saw the kitten hanging on for dear life by its nails. It had climbed up an old pegboard and was stuck right at the top. So I was too short at that time. So I asked one of the guys to help me get it. So he climbed on a stool, reached up, and brought the kitten down for me. And I took it, and I placed it inside my primary school pocket. That's all I had, was my uniform pocket. And then I walked happily home. And that was the beginning of my calling to rescue animals. Now all of you, those of you here who have pets, you'll understand, or some of you who have seen an animal movie or even watched a short clip on your handphones, you all know that animals teach us love and loyalty. But it is through animals that we also learn cruelty and death. There was one case that came through our shelter. It was brought in by a very distraught stranger. Something that he had found dumped in the back of the shop lots. And he carried in this little black puppy in a cardboard box. And as he told us what he had found, we could see that he was holding back tears of anger. This was the worst case of premeditated abuse that we had seen. We named the puppy Mohawk because somebody had shaved the side of his head and left just the center. Worst of all, they cut off his ears, and his spine was injured, and he could only move around by dragging himself. Who would do such a thing to such an innocent animal? Who could even think of it? What would you do if you knew somebody who was doing this? We didn't have a vet on site, so we could only take the puppy to the clinic the next morning. So our general manager took him home with him. But he didn't live to see the light of a new day. His injuries had been so serious that Mohawk succumbed that night. But at least in his last hours, he knew love and care. And his death was the end to his suffering. Our staff at the shelter see a lot of suffering. Every day, puppies and kittens are dumped outside our gate if they're not thrown over the fence at night, only to be attacked by the older animals. Every day we receive phone calls from people asking us to go and pick up their dogs because they're old and they don't want them anymore. Every day we are astounded by the level of cruelty that people will go through. But animals also teach us resilience. There was another puppy that was brought to the shelter. Somebody had tied a rubber band around his hind leg and left it there for too long, and it cut off the circulation of this leg. So under the vet's advice, we had the leg amputated. And after he recovered from surgery, I decided that my family would adopt this dog, and we named him Luke. We named him Luke after Skywalker, who had also lost a limb. Because at home we already had Jabba, and we have another dog, Obi. And then amongst our cats, we also had Kylo. So in our home, Luke flourished. He went from a dog that had such little confidence and couldn't even jump across a small drain to one that could jump up onto our 2-foot-high flower bed. And when we took him for the wiggle waggle walk that year, people were commenting that they never knew a 3-legged dog could run so fast. So one of the things that I'd like to teach you about is about our outreach programs that we do in SSPCA. Part of our outreach programs, because we have key challenges with animal welfare awareness, as well as rabies awareness. So we go to institutes of higher learning and to schools, because we believe that when we speak to the children, they will go back and speak to their parents and their family. Since 2017, we have spoken to 10,423 students in just about 100 institutions. And through our adoption program and neutering campaign, 562 animals have been neutered, thereby preventing unwanted puppies and kittens from being born. Now in 2017 was when the rabies outbreak came. And that was the most stressful time in my whole life, and also for my team, I believe. Going down to ground zero in Syrian to see how the disease had crossed the borders, and also going to meet the families who had lost their children. Most of the stress came from trying to find a realistic solution to fighting the disease, preventing more human deaths, and saving the community animals who were running around and who knew all their neighbors. We urged government to do vaccination, and we went house to house with them in some of the areas. And through this vaccination process, the Sarawak government vaccinated so far 140,000 dogs and animals. Another part of our education is that we teach people that a pet is for life. If you're lucky, it can stay with you for 10 to 15 years. So just the other day, just last month in fact, when a friend came and asked me, and he said, "Can I send my 2 dogs to your shelter?" He says, "They're old and I don't want them anymore." So I told him, "No, you shouldn't do that. Because when you do that, you are teaching your children that when you are old and of not much use, they should send you to the old folks' home and just leave you there. Because our actions are reflected on our children, and therefore we should teach them to care for all living things." If there's anything that you would leave from this talk today, it would be this. It would be care. C-A-R-E. C for compassion. Compassion is the highest level of care. And we need to have compassion for all the living things that share this earth with us. A for awareness. You need to be aware of what is happening around you, and you need to be the change that you want to see. Shine for others. R for respect. Respect the fact that every living being deserves the right to live happily. And E, empathy. Try to understand how the animals feel. How do you think your dog feels when you leave him in the cage under the sun and the rain, just so that he can be your watchman at your gate? Care is not saying that the flesh is watery and tasteless. Care is not telling them that they're old and useless. Care is loving the environment around us, showing the animals and the plants in whatever shape or form. I come here today not to just speak so you can listen, but I come here with a message that I hope you can take home with you, to show that we are connected to the environment around us. And what we do will leave a mark. If we disregard the well-being and care of animals, then we can so easily disregard the well-being and care for humans. And before I leave you this morning, I want to give you a quote for you to ponder. And it's attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. And he says that the greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. Thank you.